Did you know we have completely ad-free early access to all of our episodes? Well, we do. Not only that, but we have dozens of bonus episodes waiting for you. Head on over to patreon.com/ghosttownpod, and you can check it out for 7 days absolutely free. That's patreon.com/ghosttownpod. Hunting for treasure. I'm Jason Horton.
I'm Rebecca Lieb.
And this is Ghost Town.
What would you do if you were an adventurer who was given a terminal cancer diagnosis? Well, if you were Forrest Fenn, you'd bury a vast treasure in the Rocky Mountains and publish a memoir that included a 24-line poem to find it. Simple, right? To everyone's surprise, Fenn's provocative poem worked, kicking off a decade-long hunt across parts of New Mexico, Colorado, Wyoming, and Montana, with men actually dying in pursuit of the seemingly unsolvable puzzle, leading to millions in actual treasure. But would Fenn's notorious treasure ever be found? Oh, we're going to talk about it. This is the story of Forrest Fenn, a Santa Fe art dealer with a mind for mysteries, exploration, and of course, one epic, nearly mythical, multi-million-dollar buried treasure challenge. Forrest Fenn was born in Temple, Texas on August 22nd, 1930, to a teacher and a nurse, living modestly and preferring time outdoors to being in the classroom. Fenn's summers were the highlight of his childhood. For years, he spent fishing in Yellowstone National Park and hunting for arrowheads with his father. In an interview with the New York Times in 2017, Fenn said he found his first arrowhead when he was 9, and that it was still, quote, the most prized possession in my collection. Fenn's father would influence him in lots of ways as he got older, specifically pushing the boundaries and people's expectations. Quote, my father taught me not to dwell on the center line, but to go out to the edge and see what was there, he said. That thought manifested itself in many ways in my later life. After going to high school and junior college, on September 6, 1950, Fenn enrolled in the Air Force and rose to the rank of major, most notably flying 328 combat missions in 365 days during the Vietnam War. After retiring from the Air Force in the 70s, he settled into a quiet life running an art gallery with his wife, Peggy. The gallery sold a variety of bronze sculptures, Native American artifacts, paintings, and more. Many thought Fenn was strange, a kind of wild man eccentric with an eye for artifact. For example, the gallery had priceless items next to pieces of garbage Fenn liked to pick up on the side of the road, and alligators slithered through the gallery's small outdoor garden. And yet, Fenn's gallery became hugely successful, so much so that it made Fenn rich. A 1986 profile in People magazine reported that former President Ford, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis, Robert Redford, Cher, and Steve Martin were among the gallery's patrons, paying top dollar for Native American art. Quote, I've been called eccentric and I'm flattered by that, Forrest once said, because the difference between an eccentric and a kook is that an eccentric has money. In 1988, however, everything changed. Fenn was diagnosed with kidney cancer and given a 20% chance of surviving more than a couple of years. The diagnosis inspired him to enact a 2-part plan. Any guesses to what the plan was? Any ideas what he did?
Some clues?
Some clues do come into play.
Yeah.
Clues come into play for sure. There's some clues of some hijinks. There's some directives. There's some things that people really feel compelled. So, okay, it's 2-part. First part, hiding treasure in an undisclosed location. Sounds pretty good. Second part, writing a memoir, detailing his adventures and inspiring the readers to find that treasure. According to a Hemispheres magazine feature from 2010, Fenn was reminded of how much fun he'd had hunting down fine art pieces and building his collection over the decades. He felt it would be a shame if all ended with his death. The memoir would help preserve his legacy, of course, but as he saw it, there was only one way to pass along that sense of delight, that thrill of the hunt. It was a legacy that would be appreciated by fellow adventurers and fellow puzzle lovers the world over. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, Fenn amassed his treasure. In 1990, he spent $25,000 to acquire an 800-year-old bronze lockbox and began filling it with antiques that included hundreds of gold nuggets, more than 260 gold coins, hundreds of rubies, 8 emeralds, 2 sapphires, many diamonds, couldn't find the exact number, but many, 2 ancient Chinese jade carvings, and lots of jewelry, most notably a 2,000-year-old fetish necklace and a 1600s gem-encrusted Spanish ring. The chest also included an ancient olive jar. Inside was a tiny copy of Fenn's memoir and, of course, a magnifying glass to read it. Fenn's plan, which feels a little ambitious, was to wait until he was close to death, then venture into the wilderness with the box and at some point lie down next to it and die. The memoir was to make it easy for the authorities to identify his body. Great. In Fenn's mind, it was the perfect end. But as Fenn would later say, there was one problem. I ruined the story by getting better. Fenn's cancer went into remission and it never came back. After holding onto the chest for 20 years, it was too good of a treasure not to bury. So Fenn amended his plan and, just hid the treasure. Sometime around 2010, he drove into the Rocky Mountains north of Santa Fe and carried the chest into the wilderness, at some point stopping to bury it and then just going back home. Fenn kicked off the raucous treasure hunt that same year when in 2010 he self-published the manuscript that was in that old olive jar. He called it The Thrill of the Chase, and essentially it was the no-frills telling of the story of his life in these kind of chapter vignettes. Most notably, however, was a cryptic poem that issued a challenge to the readers to find his treasure. I'm going to read that poem now and let me know if it feels inspiring, like a good directive to find treasure. Okay, here we go. As I've gone alone in there, and with my treasures bold, I can keep my secret where, and hint of riches new and old. Begin it where warm waters halt, and take it into the canyon down, not far, but too far to walk. Put in below the home of Brown. From there it's no place for the meek. The end is ever drawing nigh. There'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high. If you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down, your quest to cease. But tarry scant with marvel gaze. Just take the chest and go in peace. So why is it that I must go and leave my trove for all to seek? The answers I already know. I've done it tired, and now I'm weak. So hear me all and listen good. Your effort will be worth the cold. If you're brave and in the wood, I give you title to the gold. Thoughts?
What's interesting about this, and I'm familiar with this, because this is pretty much one of the only hidden treasure stories out there, a current one. I feel like when that was really hot was the 1980s, because every movie, a lot of Indiana Jones,
sure, and kids,
and then things like Romancing the Stone, Jewel of the Nile. It was always finding gold and
Quest,
treasure.
Yeah.
And what was that movie? Not Angels and Demons. What was the movie with Tom? It was also
the Dan Brown
book.
Yeah, it was the
we should know it.
Yeah, Da Vinci Code. Thank you. Producer just whispered
the Da Vinci
Code. Leonardo DiCaprio
right?
Code. It was the DiCaprio Code.
DiCaprio
You're on a yacht.
So I aside from that, I think things like that. I think because of how technology is things finding gold, mining mining for with the metal detector and stuff like that is a kind of a dated thing. So I don't know if people are generally as excited.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things of hidden treasure, because it's you can find that the technology's there.
Yeah. We'll just send a drone out and get that treasure.
Seismic this and that, and sonar and all that kind of stuff.
Carbon date the treasure and then dig it on up. Well, I mean, people were, at first, it was not a big deal. You're right. But word of the treasure spread slowly, mostly because Fenn's book was only sold at one small bookstore in Santa Fe. However, it was picked up on NBC's Today Show, and then it got more traction. This and further coverage led people to come out of Santa Fe from all over, looking for Fenn's treasure. By 2018, it was estimated that as many as 350,000 people had gone into the Rocky Mountains to search for the treasure chest. Over time, community developed around the collective search for Fenn's elusive treasure. Online, websites like hintofriches.com, chasechat.com, and Finding Fenn's Gold on Reddit, to name a few, discuss the poem and the book of strategies to find Fenn's gold. In person, devotees held Fennborees to share stories and compare theories about how to get that treasure. And you're right, it sounds like it's from the 80s, but this is 2016. This is more contemporary than you ever might think. Quote, "My hidden treasure pulls families into the Rocky Mountains to search and hike and observe the raw nature that is there," he told the New York Times in 2017. "They go home with a whole new perspective on what life is about. In this troubled world, we need some of that." Fenn's goal to pass along his sense of adventure and appreciation of nature, well, mission accomplished. And I'm sure the estimated $2 million worth of treasure probably didn't hurt. And yet, it was not all fun and games. people would die trying to find Fenn's treasure before it was miraculously found. More after this break. By 2016, the New York Times estimated that more than 65,000 people had looked for Fenn's, guided by nothing concrete but an extremely cryptic poem in a self-published memoir. People were obsessed, though, and Fenn loved the attention his quest was getting, even becoming friends with the most passionate of his treasure hunters. Dal Neitzel, a retired documentary filmmaker, said he had searched for the treasure more than 90 times across New Mexico, Montana, and Wyoming, and that he and Fenn had become essentially pen pals after exchanging some emails about the hunt in 2011. Quote, "I think most of the searchers were just giant kids at heart," said 72-year-old Neitzel. What kid didn't have a lot of fun pretending they were going to find a lost chest of gold that some pirate had hidden? It's just an extension of your childhood. But instead of it being pretend, it was real. And that made it more fun for adults. And yet, it was also extremely dangerous. Many were lost and injured trying to find Fenn's treasure. 5 people even died. Randy Bilyeu went missing in January of 2016 in pursuit of Fenn's treasure and was found dead in July. According to his wife, another man named Jeff Murphy was supposedly looking for the treasure in June of 2017 when he was found dead in Yellowstone National Park after falling about 500 feet down a steep slope. After telling family he was out looking for treasure, a pastor named Paris Wallace failed to show up at a family event on June 14, 2017. His car was found parked near the Taos Junction Bridge, and his body was found 5 miles downstream along the Rio Grande. On July 28, 2017, Eric Ashby, who had moved to Colorado in 2016 specifically to find the treasure, was found dead in Colorado's Arkansas River. Michael Wayne Sexton was also found dead on the Utah-Colorado border by rescuers on March 21, 2020, alongside his companion, who miraculously survived the encounter. All of these deaths led to the chief of the New Mexico State Police, Pete Casitas, to publicly ask Fenn to end the treasure hunt, stating, quote, "He's putting lives at risk." And I can't say Casitas was wrong. While Fenn's gold was a source of inspiration for some, as the years went on, negativity towards the challenge also surfaced. Not only for the loss of life, but people believing that the treasure was actually all fake, that Fenn was perpetuating a sadistic hoax. At best, the hoax was something to get out-of-touch dreamers and treasure hunters' hopes up, and at worst, to ensure their death. What most people don't realize about Fenn's treasure is that his treasure hunt, knowingly or not, also put Fenn in harm's way. Fenn called 911 on 3 previous occasions when people had been loitering on his property. One of these men, Paco Chavez, was arrested in 2014 for threatening Fenn's granddaughter. Chavez was also arrested again in April 2019 for violating a restraining order that prevented him from having contact with the Fenn family. On October 12, 2018, Robert Miller was convinced Fenn had kept his own treasure and broke into Fenn's property attempting to haul away a chest that he thought was the prize at hand. Miller was caught in the act by Fenn and his daughter and was held at gunpoint by the two until police arrived. Miller was charged with burglary, breaking and entering, and criminal damage to property. But despite being a danger to himself and others, Fenn believed in the challenge he put out into the world, firmly convinced that someone would eventually find his treasure. And he was right. On June 6, 2020, that's right, June 6, 2020, Fenn announced through his blog that the treasure had been found, disclosing that the finder was a man from the eastern United States who had asked to remain anonymous. Said Fenn, quote, "It was under a canopy of stars in the lush forested vegetation of the Rocky Mountains and had not moved from the spot where I hid it more than 10 years ago. I do not know the person who found it, but the poem in my book led him to the precise spot. I congratulate the thousands of people who participated in the search and hope they will continue to be drawn by the promise of other discoveries. So, the search is over. Look for more information and photos in the coming days." On July 22nd, Fenn stated on his blog that the treasure's finder had authorized him to disclose, in the interest of closure for many of the searchers, that the treasure had been hidden in Wyoming. All good, right? Treasure found and everyone gets their closure. Well, not quite. In late 2020, lawsuits surrounding the treasure began to emerge. One was a woman named Barbara Anderson who claimed that she had successfully deduced the location of the treasure, but that she had been, quote, hacked by someone who stole her solution and found it before she did. A second lawsuit by Chris and Christopher Hurst alleged that they had honed in on a 12 by 12-foot patch where they thought that the treasure was and presented their evidence to Fenn, who announced the next day that the treasure had been found. In December 2020, Jack Stueff, a medical student from Michigan, went public with the information that he had been the discoverer of Fenn's treasure. Due to safety reasons, he preferred to stay anonymous, but that a new lawsuit was expected to reveal his identity, so he decided to get on top of it and did an interview about the whole situation with Outside Magazine. In a Medium post, he also announced his identity and spoke on his experience finding Fenn's treasure. Quote, "I am the person who found Forrest's famed treasure. The moment it happened was not the triumphant Hollywood ending some surely envisioned. It just felt like I had just survived something and was fortunate to come out the other end. For so long, I thought I might be haunted for the rest of my days by knowing where the treasure was, but being unable to find it. Would I still be out there in that section of forest 50 years from now looking for it? When I finally found it, the primary emotion was not joy, but rather the most profound feeling of relief in my entire life." In July 2021, that $10 million lawsuit that outed Stuif finally surfaced. It was filed against the Fenn's estate by a French treasure hunter named Bruno Ralphos. According to the complaint, Ralphos had determined that the treasure was hidden in southwestern Colorado, informed Fenn of his solution, and began making preparations to retrieve it. However, his plans were delayed by the pandemic, and soon after, Fenn announced the treasure had been found in Wyoming. Ralphos contended that Fenn took advantage of the delay to move the chest from Colorado to Wyoming, noting that its exact final location had not been specified by Stuif or any of Fenn's relatives. Evidence for the suit was eventually found inconclusive and dismissed. And the case was dismissed. Of course, being so cryptic, many have hypothesized about how the poem did lead to the treasure. In 2013, journalist Tony Dokuyupil speculated that, after reading Fenn's memoir, the treasure lay within Yellowstone National Park, which means 9 Mile Hole as Fenn's top-secret fishing spot in the park. The 2025 Netflix docuseries Golden Greed, which is a great watch, searcher Justin Posey visited the site where the chest had been found and identified Madison Junction, where the Firehole and Gibbon River meet to form the Madison River, as the place in the poem where, quote, "warm waters halt." According to Posey, a car trip to the Madison Canyon led to 9 Mile Hole, a fishing spot known for its brown trout, relating to the line, "home of the brown." Perhaps Fenn had made peace with his life now that the challenge had been solved, because 3 months after the treasure was found, on September 7th, 2020, Fenn died at his home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. He was 90 years old. His infamous treasure had created an offbeat legacy, but more than that, he inspired thousands to get out of nature and adventure. Jack Stuif, again the man who found Fenn's infamous treasure, also shares that reverent optimism, saying, quote, "The treasure is a unique piece of American cultural history. The gold glitters, but brighter still the embedded hopes and dreams of all the many thousands who searched for it."